Some betrayals don't come with shouting or slamming doors, they arrive in silence, dressed as reason, and leave you wondering when you became invisible in the life you built. In today's story, we follow a mother who spent decades sacrificing everything for her children, only to be told she was no longer needed, not even at her own daughter's wedding. But when quiet heartbreak turned into clarity, she made a decision no one expected. If you've ever felt overlooked by the people you loved the most, this one's for you. At ErasedMe, we tell stories that speak to quiet pain, fierce dignity, and the strength it takes to finally say, enough. If stories like this resonate with you, don't forget to subscribe, we have so much more to share. My name is Margaret Collins. I'm 59, a widow, and I live in a modest blue house tucked into a quiet neighborhood in Oregon. The kind of place where the mailman knows your dog's name and the wind carries the scent of pine in the early mornings. For nearly 2 decades, I've worked as an office manager at a mid-sized law firm. It's not glamorous, but it paid the mortgage and kept the lights on. More importantly, it let me raise 2 children on my own after my husband, Daniel, passed away from a heart attack in the middle of a Thursday morning. One moment he was packing his lunch, the next he was gone. I was 42 and suddenly alone. From that day forward, everything I did was for Emily and Luke. I picked up extra shifts, canceled vacations, wore shoes until the soles gave out. I skipped hair appointments, birthday lunches, weekends with friends, because every dollar had a purpose. I told myself I'd rest when they were grown. I lied. Emily is 32 now, beautiful and ambitious, with a laugh that used to fill every corner of this house. Luke is 29, thoughtful, a little too serious for his age. And yet, somehow, as they've soared into adulthood, I've become a ghost in my own story. The world calls it motherhood. But sometimes, it feels more like quiet erasure, like I gave everything, and when the giving was done, so was my place in their lives. And yet, I never expected how clearly they'd prove that to me, until the day that email arrived. The email arrived on a Tuesday morning. I remember the sunlight spilling across the kitchen table, catching the steam from my coffee like a soft fog. I had just fed the neighbor's cat while she was away for the week and was humming an old Simon and Garfunkel tune when I saw it, from Emily with no subject line. I smiled instinctively. Maybe it was a thank you for the wedding fund, or a photo of the venue. We had just spoken weeks ago about the caterer and her dress fitting. I'd already sent $30,000, more than I'd spent on my own wedding. But when I clicked it open, the warmth drained from my body. There was no "Dear Mom." Just "Mom," like a salutation you'd write to a coworker. She wrote that she and Andrew, along with his family, had finalized the guest list for their wedding in Napa Valley. After much thought, they decided it was best for me to watch via live stream. Andrew's mother, she explained, was particular about the head count. "We hope you understand," she added, followed by a sentence that would echo in my mind for days. "It'll be just like being there. LOL. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I simply stared at my screen until the letters blurred, and quietly typed 4 words. Sure. Enjoy your big day. I didn't know it then, but those words would be the last time I allowed silence to be mistaken for submission. After I hit send, the room felt colder somehow, like the walls were leaning away from me. My coffee had gone cold, untouched. Outside, birds chirped like it was just another spring morning in Oregon, but inside me, something had shifted. Not violently. Not with drama. Just different. Like the foundation of something had quietly cracked. I didn't cry. I didn't feel rage. What I felt was emptiness, the kind that sits in your chest and rearranges who you are. I closed my laptop, stood up, and washed the mug like I always did. Dried it. Placed it back on the shelf next to Daniel's old navy coffee cup, the one with the chipped handle I never had the heart to throw away. Then I went upstairs and got dressed for work. Slacks, blouse, small gold earrings, my uniform for pretending everything's fine. But it wasn't just another Tuesday. That was the day I stopped pretending that my sacrifices meant something to Emily. That my quiet giving had been noticed. That love, by itself, was enough. On the drive to the office, I didn't turn on the radio like usual. Just the sound of tires on pavement and the rhythm of my breathing. In that silence, I found a bitter kind of clarity. I wasn't angry for being excluded. I was angry because I had trained them to believe it was okay. I had been invisible for so long, they forgot I was ever there. After work, I didn't go straight home. Instead, I turned left at the light on Main and drove 3 blocks to First Federal Bank. The parking lot was nearly empty, late afternoon sun casting long shadows across the pavement. I sat in the car for a moment, staring at the keypad on the steering wheel. My heart wasn't racing. It was steady, coldly steady. Carlos, the branch manager, greeted me with a smile as I walked in. He'd helped me set up Emily's college savings account when she was 16. Back then, I used to bring in cookies for the staff at Christmas. Funny, the things you remember. Mrs. Collins, he said, standing. What can I help you with today? I sat down, placing my purse carefully on the floor like I was laying down armor. I need to cancel a wire transfer. His brows lifted slightly. The one scheduled for the Napa venue? Yes. That one. He hesitated, fingers hovering above the keyboard. There may be a cancellation fee depending on. It's fine, I interrupted. The circumstances have changed. He nodded slowly. You're in luck. It hasn't processed yet. Just in time. He glanced up. Are you sure? It's a significant amount. I met his gaze. I'm sure. $50,000. On top of the 30 I'd already given. 80,000 for a seat I was no longer welcome in. A role I was no longer allowed to play. I signed the forms with hands that didn't tremble. Outside, the sky was streaked with fading gold. I felt no regret, no second thoughts, only a quiet, devastating clarity. They didn't just uninvite me. They released me. By the time I got home, the porch light had flickered on, casting a pale circle onto the wooden steps. I stepped inside, locked the door behind me, and let the silence wrap around me like a familiar coat. 9 missed calls from Emily. 2 from Luke. 1 voicemail said, "Mom, please don't do this." I didn't listen to the rest. I poured myself a glass of red wine, the one I'd been saving for Thanksgiving. Emily was supposed to come home that year. She canceled the day before. Work's crazy, Mom. Rain check? There were always rain checks, always delays, always something more important. I took the wine out to the porch and watched the light fade from the sky. A dog barked somewhere down the block. The scent of fresh grass hung in the air. And I thought, this was peace, wasn't it? My mind wandered through years of forgotten birthdays, holidays where I cooked for one, and the countless nights I waited for a call that never came. I remembered every sacrifice, every yes I whispered instead of asking for anything in return. And now, suddenly, I was the problem. The one making things difficult. It hit me slowly but with weight. I had trained them to treat me this way. Not with malice, but through a quiet pattern of always being there, no matter what. Now, for once, I had finally said no. The doorbell rang at 9:04 p.m. I considered ignoring it, pretending I wasn't home. But the knocking came again, soft, then urgent. When I opened the door, Luke stood on the porch, still in his office clothes, tie loosened, phone in one hand like a prop he wasn't sure how to use. "Mom," he said, stepping inside before I could respond. "Why aren't you answering your phone? Emily's freaking out." I closed the door quietly. "Hello to you too." He was already pacing, his voice tight with frustration. "She says you canceled the payment. That you're not coming to the wedding now. What is going on?" I sipped my wine. "I'm not invited, remember?" He stopped mid-stride. Come on, Mom. You know how Andrew's parents are. They're footing most of the bill. It's complicated. I raised an eyebrow. I paid $30,000. I was about to send $50,000 more. His mouth fell open. Wait, you were sending 50 more? Was, I said. Not anymore. Luke turned pale. Mom, they're counting on that. The venue, the caterer. Not my problem, I replied. His voice rose. Of course it's your problem. She's your daughter. I met his eyes, calm but unwavering. And I'm her mother. A mother told to stay home and watch through a screen. The words landed like a slap. He ran a hand through his hair, eyes wild. You always make it about yourself. That was it. That was the moment something inside me finally snapped, but not in anger. In resolve. Get out of my house, Luke. He froze. What? You heard me. The door clicked shut behind Luke with a dull finality. He didn't slam it, he didn't need to. The silence that followed was far louder. I stood in the middle of my living room, wine glass still in hand, heart steady but heavy. For a moment, I waited for the guilt to come rushing in, the familiar ache, the need to apologize, to fix what had broken. But it didn't. I felt free. The next morning, I awoke to 43 missed calls. Emily. Luke. Even Andrew. A flood of texts scrolled across my lock screen, ranging from pleading to furious. Mom, please. Don't do this. This isn't funny. We're going to lose everything. You're proving them right. I stared at them as I drank my coffee, the same mug Daniel once used every Sunday morning. It felt absurd how quickly I had shifted in their eyes. From caregiver to saboteur. From the backbone of the family to the villain of their story. At 3:24 a.m., Emily sent one final message. I don't understand why you're doing this to me. And there it was. The truth wrapped in a single line. She didn't understand. She had grown up inside the comfort of my sacrifices, college paid for, plane tickets covered, rent floated when things got tight, and never once asked what it cost me. She assumed the giving was endless. That I was endless. But now that the money stopped, so did her grace. I didn't respond. I didn't need to. Because for the first time in my life, my silence wasn't weakness. It was power. The sky was dimming when I pulled into the driveway. The porch light clicked on automatically, illuminating a figure sitting on my front steps. For a second, I thought Emily had come herself. But as I stepped closer, I recognized the soft features, the hesitant smile. Sophia? I asked. She stood quickly, brushing invisible lint from her coat. Hi, Mrs. Collins. I hope it's okay, I didn't want to call first and get ignored. There was no malice in her voice, just the awkward courage of someone sent on a mission they didn't believe in. It's fine, I said. Would you like some tea? Inside, she looked around like she was stepping back in time. The walls hadn't changed much since the 5th grade sleepovers and birthday parties she used to attend with Emily. She's a mess, Sophia finally said, voice low. The venue's gone. The florist dropped out. Andrew's parents are threatening to cancel the whole thing. I poured the tea, placed her cup gently on the table. And you're here to fix it? She shook her head. No. I'm here to ask if there's anything Emily can say or do to change your mind. I sat down slowly, feeling the weight of decades settle into the silence. No, I said quietly. Sophia's eyes shimmered. Not even if she apologizes? Words are easy when people are desperate, I replied. But love shouldn't arrive after the damage is done. If she saw me before the money disappeared, this wouldn't be happening. Sophia nodded, her expression thoughtful. I get it, she whispered. Even if she doesn't. And just like that, she stood, hugged me gently, and disappeared into the night. In the days that followed, the calls slowed to a trickle, then stopped. No more urgent texts, no more frantic voicemails. Just stillness. And for the first time in a long time, I welcomed it. I woke up without dread in my chest. No mental list of who needed what, no weight of expectations pulling me out of bed. I made eggs with rosemary from my garden, joined a pottery class at the community center, and spent quiet evenings with a book in hand and my phone turned face down. One evening, while rinsing dishes, I paused. The window above the sink reflected the soft lines of my face, older, yes, but calmer. For years, I had believed my worth came from what I gave. Now, I was starting to see it came from who I was without giving anything at all. I made a rule for myself, scrawled in ink on the inside of my journal. If my presence is negotiable, then so is my effort. It wasn't meant to be cruel. It was clarity. A boundary carved from years of being everything for everyone except myself. My world didn't collapse without their approval. In fact, it finally expanded. I began choosing people who chose me back, not because they needed something, but because they saw me. Not mom. Not the wallet. Not the fallback plan. Just Margaret. And that, I realized, was more than enough. Weeks passed. Spring leaned gently into summer, and the dogwoods in my yard began to bloom. The world kept turning, soft and indifferent. One morning, an email arrived from Emily. It was long, nearly a novel, half apology, half explanation. She spoke of stress, pressure from Andrew's parents, and how everything got out of hand. She said she never meant to hurt me. That she was sorry, but also confused by my reaction. That she wished I had handled things differently. I read it once, slowly. Then archived it. Not because I was angry. I wasn't, not anymore. What I felt was something simpler, deeper. I was done. Not in bitterness, but in peace. Sometimes letting go isn't an act of vengeance. It's an act of grace, for yourself. The wedding, as it turned out, happened weeks later in Andrew's parents' backyard. A small gathering, trimmed down, last minute. I wasn't invited, and for the first time, I didn't need to be. That door had already closed, and I had locked it from the inside. Now, I go to work, I walk to the farmer's market on Saturdays, I share quiet dinners with friends who ask about me, not just what I can offer. I still love my children. That love was never in question. But I no longer love them in a way that costs me myself. And perhaps that is the hardest, bravest kind of love there is. There's a quiet kind of strength in choosing yourself, not out of selfishness, but out of finally remembering that you matter too. So I turned off my phone, stepped outside into the golden light, and closed the last door I'd ever begged to be let back through. There comes a time in every life when silence is no longer surrender, but strength. Margaret's story is not just about exclusion from a wedding, it's about a woman reclaiming the dignity long buried beneath decades of sacrifice. Through her quiet resilience, she teaches us that loyalty is not blind obedience, it's choosing to love while also honoring yourself. Her courage wasn't loud or dramatic. It lived in small moments, in canceling a wire transfer, in refusing to argue, in drawing a line between love and obligation. Margaret remained loyal to her children, even when they forgot who she was beyond her giving. And when faced with betrayal disguised as tradition, she didn't scream. She chose truth, her truth. A truth that said, I matter, too. The deepest lesson in her story is this: unconditional love should not come at the cost of self-erasure. Real strength isn't in how long you can endure, but in when you decide to stop. Margaret didn't walk away out of spite, she walked away to breathe, to heal, to remember the sound of her own voice. In doing so, she didn't lose her children, she found herself. And perhaps, in time, they may come to see her not just as the woman who raised them, but as the human being they overlooked. Her story lingers because it reminds us of a truth too often whispered: You don't have to burn yourself to keep others warm. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is step out of the shadows and choose you.